What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 23 My Team Career Mode, and we're here for round number 20 of Season 7 of our Jaguar Racing career. There are just 4 races left to go in the remainder of our entire time as Jaguar Racing. Of course, we'll be moving on to doing a driver career in F1 24, so there are only, like I said, 4 races left to go. We're currently going to be doing the Mexican Grand Prix in this video, and if you just saw on the R&D chart there, the results at the bottom, you will have seen that we had a 2nd place in the US Grand Prix. Unfortunately, it was 2nd place to the man who currently sits top of the driver's standings, George Russell. He got P1 in that race, and he currently sits 34 points ahead of us in the championship with just 4 races to go. I'm really starting to feel the championship sliding through my fingers a little bit, perhaps. I felt like I was in control of it at one point towards the halfway point of the season, and now it just feels like it's starting to get away from me a little bit, unfortunately. Through no real fault of our own, you know. We're having mechanical failures all over the place, especially at the start of the season. That kind of put us on the back foot, and since then, you know, we got a bit unlucky in one of the races. I think it was the Italian Grand Prix with a red flag timing. We fought our way back through, but we still couldn't get points in that race. Singapore, we just didn't really have the pace to contend with most of the cars. We finished P6 in that race. Japan, I was on for a win, and then I had a mechanical failure. You know, so many instances of there could have been something that had gone better or gone differently at least. And yeah, unfortunately that sees us kind of in need of beating George Russell by ideally at least sort of 3 points, not 3 points, 8 points, I think it is how much I want to beat him by today. Close that gap to 26 points, because you know, George Russell I think can not wrap up the championship this weekend, but if he outscores me by sorry, if I don't outscore him by 8 points today, then he has a chance to wrap up the championship next weekend if he can win it with fastest lap then. So yeah, we kind of need a good result here today, because the championship really hangs in the balance of me beating George Russell, you know, week in, week out, trying to get as many good results as I can. And well, you see we're in qualifying right now, and yeah, we went P1 in Q1, which was pretty good. We actually didn't improve on our second lap. Track was a bit colder. I think there's some rain on the horizon here. So our first flying lap in Q1 was actually the faster of the 2 laps that we did. It was a 1:15.2, you can see, but George Russell was there in P4 as well. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc knocked out in Q1. We're in a Constructors' Championship fight as well, but we might not be for much longer if Charles Leclerc doesn't get his act together in the race and hopefully score a few points. De Vries, Joe, Albon, Verstappen and Stroll were the other drivers knocked out here in Q1. I don't think any of those were particularly big surprises. Maybe Albon, I guess. Verstappen's been knocked out in Q1 all the time, so I can't really call it a massive surprise anymore. But here we are in Q2, and I think the rain is imminent here. So I did a pretty decent lap on a used set of soft compound tyres. It was a 1:15.7, but I don't know if this is going to be good enough to see us through or not. But I guess we'll find out as we go out for our second flying lap. You can see it is raining quite a bit now. I went out on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, but it just didn't really make much difference at all, to be frank with you, because we lost 1 second over the time we did before. So yeah, the track not really going well enough. Fortunately, we still managed to make it through in P8, so we are through into Q3. And one thing that is very nice to see here is you can see Sargent and Hauger topping the timing sheets, both Aston Martins in the top 2 there. Russell and Ocon have been knocked out here in Q2, as is Lando Norris as well. So yeah, a lot of people knocked out in the second qualifying session there that you would expect to see in Q3, joining the likes of Doohan and Piastri, and I can't remember who the other driver that was knocked out there was. I think it was Perez. So yeah, quite a few surprising entrance into Q3. You know, Magnussen, Tsunoda, both Williamses, Porsche in the Haas as well. Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed Q3 here. We do a 1:19.1 on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, and that's probably going to be the only lap we're going to get to do here, because the rain is getting heavier and heavier at the moment. So yeah, I think it's going to be P5 only for us here today. Sargent goes fastest, and it's a 1-2 front row lockout for the Aston Martins once again here. The Alpines locking out the second row as well, as we're gonna be starting from P5. So we're gonna have to hopefully get a very good start tomorrow if we want to get ourselves up to the front of the field. I just don't really know where it's kind of gone wrong for us here in terms of fighting for pole position. Definitely looked like we had the pace to do it, but we're gonna have to see what we can do now as we get into the Mexican Grand Prix.
In the 60s, Mexico City would be the season-ending race. That's no longer the case, but it is always a party in these parts. Welcome to the Mexico City Grand Prix. 2,285 metres above sea level, the altitude will test the driver's fitness and their engine's efficiency. 17 corners, 7 to the left, 10 to the right, and make up a 2.6-mile circuit equipped with 2 DRS zones. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Logan Sargent lines up on pole position, and Dennis Hauger completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Vesti, Gasly, Robinson, Liam Lawson, Teo Porcher, Fittipaldi, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Perez, Norris, Russell, Ocon, Oscar Piastri, Doohan, Leclerc, Joe, Albon, Verstappen, Stroll, and Nick de Vries rounds off the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. Joining me for the Grand Prix once again is Anthony Davidson. Now, can I get your take on Max Verstappen? Joined once again by Anthony Davidson in the commentary box. And they've suffered a grid penalty due to taking a new engine. It could mean a tough race in store.
But on the bright side, at least those fresh components can help them maintain the power they need to come through the pack. I expect to see them take a more aggressive approach today to make up for the compromised start.
We need a good result today if we want to catch Russell in the Drivers' Championship.
Really, even starting from P5, I think that a win has to be the absolute minimum here for me to be satisfied with the outcome of the race. Ideally a win with fastest lap, to be honest, because even though George Russell is starting just outside that top 10, I still think that he has a good chance of scoring some really good points, maybe even getting himself onto the podium here today. You know, if he gets a good start, he can really come through the field quite quickly. It's an easy track to overtake at. This big long main straight is ripe for overtaking. The DRS zone is absolutely massive compared to some other circuits. So yeah, I could really see George Russell still coming through, honestly, to maybe even win the race if he's got the pace to do it. You know, so we have to just try and get ahead of all these cars as quickly as we can, and then try and break away and basically try and outrun the chasing pack. But we'll see what we can do now as the lights come on. And the lights go out, and we've had a good getaway there compared to at least Pierre Gasly. We're already up in P4. Logan Sargent slow from P1, and we're already up into P3. Frederick Vesti as well, we seem to be closing down on, but in the second phase, I think he might have slightly more top speed compared to us. So we're going to have to try and get creative here, and we're going to try and go around the outside of the Danish driver up into P2 ahead of the Alpine, and now it is just Dennis Hauger that sits between myself and first place. But I mean, he's already breaking away at pace. You can see Dennis Hauger on those soft compound tyres compared to our medium compound tyres. He will be pretty quick in the opening stint of this race, you would have to imagine, at least in the first sort of 8-9 laps or so, before maybe we'll start to reel him in a little bit. So if he does break away, I don't know if it'll necessarily be the end of the world, but I do want to try and keep him in touch as much as I can, and crucially try and break away from the cars behind as well, because if we can't break away from the cars behind, we will be finding ourselves getting locked in lots of battles with the likes of Vesti, Sargent, anyone else who might want to come through the field and get involved in a fight. Any of them conceivably could really hold us up when my focus is absolutely on Dennis Hauger in P1. I love the guy, drove for us for 2 seasons at Jaguar, of course, and definitely my favourite driver on the grid who doesn't drive for Jaguar. But I can't in good conscience cheer for him winning this race when I know that I need this victory here today. So yeah, the fact that he'd already broken away by 3 seconds as we make our way onto lap 4 was slightly concerning, but what's even more concerning now is that Frederick Vesti has just overtaken us up into P2, so we're going to have to try and fight him back and get back ahead of him as quickly as we possibly can. Unfortunately, the medium compound runner of Frederick Vesti is maybe just a bit too strong for us right now, and I think probably what's happening is that because there's a bit of a DRS train here, it's that the other cars on the soft compound tyres couldn't overtake Frederick Vesti, but now he's got ahead of us. I worry that the soft compound runners might start coming for me as well, so we have to try and make it a priority to get back ahead of Vesti as quickly as we can, obviously on the same strategy as well. So yeah, we're going to try and get ahead of him as quickly as we could. Couldn't quite get ahead of him into turn 1 there, but we might have another go through this second DRS zone now. We're just behind him, we've got the DRS and we're closing him down quite quickly. We dummy him to the inside, we're going to try and go around the outside now, but he's still quite far ahead, but that's not going to deter me, and we go up the inside at the following corner, squeeze him out, and we are going to be back up into P2. But this whole time that we've been battling, Dennis Hauger has just been getting further and further away. The gap is now 4 seconds in just over 4 laps, 4.5 laps we've driven so far. Dennis Hauger is starting to break away and look like he is very much going to be the favourite to win this race today. So I have to try and break away at pace very, very quickly, but you can see that I've not really done enough to break away from even Frederick Vesti at the moment. I thought he might look for a move into the end of that DRS zone, but he didn't quite have the pace on me. He wasn't quite close enough to commit to the move, but you would imagine that through the DRS zone, the main straight, it's such a long DRS zone that he will just feel compelled to try and go for an overtake on me here. Not to mention that the setup I'm running is a little bit higher downforce than you would typically run at Mexico. This just makes me feel a bit more comfortable through the sort of more technical sections, the corner heavy sections. But what that means, as you can see, is that I'm quite slow through the straights, and as a result that's allowed Frederick Vesti now to get ahead of me, so we're going to have to try and close him down again as quickly as we can. Unfortunately, it's a detection point that serves 2 DRS zones. You can see that Frederick Vesti had the DRS once again, even though he's comfortably ahead of me on the entry to the DRS zone. So as we make our way onto lap number 7 now, you can see that Frederick Vesti is still not outside of my DRS range, so we might have a chance to go around the outside of him into turn 1 here. We have to brake nice and late to be able to get it done, but he brakes even later, and as a result he actually goes deep into the corner. We go for the cutback on him, and through the double chicane we manage to make our way back ahead of Frederick Vesti and up into P2 once again. But I think he might try and fight us back, even though we've got the DRS here. He's thinking about going for a move around the outside, but he doesn't quite have the tyre performance to get it done. And actually what he's done by going for that move is he's allowed Logan Sargent now to make his way up into P3, and this could be bad news for me because Logan Sargent is on those soft compound tyres. I'm going to have to hope that he's already taken too much life out of those tyres to really mount much of a threat on me, and hopefully we will be able to pull away from him. Maybe he'll even be my sort of saving grace in this race as he holds up the train behind. I think George Russell is already up into P6 as well, you can see on the minimap, so he could potentially be a real threat in this race if I'm not careful. And I mean, we're going to have to score big. I still need the win today if I want any chance of closing the gap to George Russell by any meaningful margin, because I could still see him getting a podium here today, quite frankly. We came under a little bit of an attack from Logan Sargent, and I think once again he's going to look for an attack in the same spot here on lap number 8. He wants to make it an Aston Martin 1-2 here today, of course. I am absolutely determined to make that not happen here, because if that does happen, that will be absolutely disastrous for our chances of beating George Russell, especially now that he's up into P5 as well. He's got ahead of Liam Lawson, and well, Logan Sargent only 7 tenths behind me, and it's a long DRS zone. I think there's every chance in the world that the American driver could try and make the overtake up into P2 here as we make our way down to turn 1 here. He is right alongside us into turn 1, but the tyre performance, is it there for him? Maybe not. We hang it around the outside of Logan Sargent, switch to the inside for the next couple of corners, and by the time we get to the final apex of that sequence of corners, you can see we were far enough ahead of Logan Sargent to hold him up a little bit there, and hopefully now his tyres have started to go off enough that we can pull away from him a little bit. As we make our way onto lap number 12, you can see that we are outside of Frederick Vesti's DRS range, and we are starting to close up to Dennis Hauger as well. The gap is coming down slowly now. We're only a few laps away from our pit stop on lap 15 as well, and of course we won't be getting that undercut on the soft compound runners either, So yeah, we're going to have to try and do everything we can to close the gap to Hauger on track, and I'll have to probably overtake him on track as well. Sargent is currently running in P4 now, and we've had a mechanical failure again. Why of all the races did it have to be now? You know, it happened in Japan when I was leading the race, and it's happened here when I'm in P2. This Ferrari engine does not have the durability that it advertised. It just simply doesn't. You know, we had, what, 2-3 mechanical failures every season before this one. I can't think of a season where we had more than 3 mechanical failures. This is number 6. This is number 6 here in Season 7. This is absolutely ridiculous. And that probably is going to gift the championship to George Russell. I can't see a world in which we can come back from that now. He is going to be so far ahead of us in the championship. I don't know. We will have to just pray that we get lucky for the last 3 races of the season.
It's a performance to be proud of from our Mexico City Grand Prix winners today. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
It's time to present the top drivers with their trophies for today's Grand Prix. And there are a lot of people in the paddock very happy with this result. It's Aston Martin on the top step.
So Dennis Hauger does at least manage to grab the victory here today. Is George Russell P2, but, you know, if I'm being an optimist about this, let's say at least it wasn't P1, and, you know, he has stayed in what could possibly be a catchable range if I have some absolutely inspired performances in these last 3 races, and George Russell maybe has some very, very poor ones. Logan Sargent completing the podium in P3 to make it a double podium for the Aston Martin team as well.
So let's have a look then at the drivers' standings. That's a positive result for George Russell, who further solidifies his position at the top of the standings. After an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
Dennis Hauger gets my vote today.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Red Bull pull further ahead in the standings. Well, that certainly was an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon.
Well, things are not looking up for us right now. We are 52 points behind George Russell now, which means that basically in Portugal, the following race, I absolutely have to outscore him. If he outscores me at all, if he finishes ahead of me on track, he wins the championship then and there. We have to beat George Russell in Portugal now just to keep the championship alive. Never mind to win the championship, just to keep the championship alive going into the final 2 races, we need to finish ahead of him now. We are 60 points down in the Constructors' Championship. Charles Leclerc actually did manage to fight his way back to score 1 point today, but it's not really good enough. Charles Leclerc can have no more of these qualifying blunders for the remainder of the season if we still want to win the Constructors' Championship, which we are 60 points down on Red Bull in with just 3 races to go as well. So things are looking absolutely desperate for us going into the final 3 races, but that is going to be it for this video. So if you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.